And I think we're going to be live in a second.
Can you hear that like my fan is running? I use the little
No,
mic. It sounds clear.
I think we're going to be live in a second. Okay, let me just turn my volume down over here.
I think we're
So,
already fine.
yeah, we are more than live. So, welcome everybody to the Staying Sane podcast, where we talk about how to stay sane in a crazy world. And it's interesting, ever since we started this podcast, I think, unfortunately, or it's fortunately, things have actually gotten crazier. That's interesting. You were mentioning that you just recently came back to Florida and you really noticed the temperature had increased. And we're not talking about the temperature outside, which may have increased as well, but talking about the kind of social political temperature. Is that right?
Being out of the country for just 2 months, when I left, it felt a certain way. And I'm a sensitively tuned meditator. There's an energy of like, this is what it's like. This is the climate of the United States or of Orlando. And then 8 weeks out, come back, clearly indiscernibly different. So it's hotter, as you say. It's more tense, and there's more criminal activity in my very own neighborhood.
So
As
that
recently as 2:15 this morning, people were peeking in my windows with flashlights.
so this is interesting. You're pointing out there's a trend. It's not just the sort of famous political trends that we know about. You're sort of saying there's a general uptick in sort of chaos and everyday criminality that is going on in Florida right now, and maybe across America as well.
I think it is across America, and I where we're going to continue this conversation is right now because we're in a post-truth time, a post-truth era,
Yeah.
anecdotal evidence is becoming more reliable than the data, because data is just lied about, or if data is truthful and then 50% of people go, I don't like that statistic, so I decide that you're just lying. But when you're talking to your friends and neighbors, so when I called my landlord, for example, to be like, hey, you need to be aware of what's going on, like, because I am going to be taking actions to protect my property, which happens to be on his property. And he said to me, in the Next Door app, he lives up in Gainesville. I'm here in Orlando. He goes, things are getting worse. I see people posting things more and more often on Nextdoor, showing exactly like the Ring camera footage of people stealing packages or crimes taking place. Like, we're seeing it, we're aware of it. If you go on your Nextdoor app and talk to your neighbors, and it's clearly happening. But then we have the president of the United States firing the statisticians and deciding, what, we're not going to release numbers anymore anyway, because they don't even matter. Things are going great because that's the state narrative, and that's the only narrative that you're going to be allowed to hear.
It is scary, if you look at with the timing of it. So you're referencing this controversy where President Trump, after bad job stats came out, President Trump fired the woman who's the head of that department and was in charge of putting out the statistics, and put in his own guy. But then they also suggested they're no longer going to be, sorry, it may not happen because legally they're obliged to keep the statistic, but they may no longer do it. But what's weird about it is it seems like this is the moment where people are recognizing statistically that the economy is going south. But what happens if you remove all the statistics that say that? Like, what happens if you remove all the information that lets people know that? Then you have this weird thing where people are like, I don't have a job and I don't know what's going on, but there's no statistical explanation for it, or I can't make sense of why it's happening.
Right. We need to make sense out of what's happening by using our common sense. But what you said just reminded me of, I'm on Reddit. I'm a Redditor. I like Reddit. And someone posted in the Jacksonville subreddit an image of steaks, a single cut of steak sold at a public grocery store was priced at $45. And they were like, they put the Donald Trump sticker that goes, I did that. And it like, this was the post. And people in the comments are like, it's always been this price. Have you been to a grocery store in the last 4 years? Obviously, like, It's like, how brainwashed can you be? Do not pretend that a single piece of steak from a grocery store was $45 6 months ago. But they're willing to believe that narrative so much so that they're willing to unbelieve their own experiences that came in through their own sense perceptions. So there is that level of brainwash that is present in the cultist base. And yes, we are having political conversations today, but let's bring it to the point that we're here to discuss today, which is we are no longer able to kind of dance around it. It's so insane what's happening. This is the Staying Sane podcast. We can't really stay sane anymore. Things have gone insane. So now we need to work to return to inner stability, a sense of being centered as a place of becoming empowered to take action in the fight that we must now take on to return to sanity at the level of civilization. We are not staying sane. The shit hit the fan. It's way too far gone to just pretend anymore.
I actually, to summarize what you just said, is you're saying America is going insane. That is why, even I would say that we might normally, when you do a podcast called Staying Sane, you should be excited that it's topical, but it's not exciting. It's scary that America is getting so insane. And that was a great description, that people are like, because I can tell you there's a statistic just came out, I can look it up, but that food prices in America are way up. They are way up. That's the reality. Yes. But you're not allowed to say that. You're right, because there are, I guess, cult members who are going to tell you that you're crazy, and no, it's not true.
I've never seen a price of a $45 steak in Publix in ever. Never. That's double of what a steak used to be.
Yeah.
And not that long ago.
Yeah. And so what happens when you go to the store and you're quite sure that prices are going up, and then you engage in a public forum and people say, I don't know what you're talking about. In fact, inflation is down, or things have never been better. Like, what is that?
Well, that is a phenomena that those of us who still have a tether to our own sanity must now become stronger to do. I'm a peaceful person, so I want to be careful with my use of words like fight and do battle and wage a war against. But there is like, stand your ground. When you're coming after me, I'm not just I'm a monk and I'll just pray as you cut my head off. Hell no. I'm just a little woman, but if you're going to kill me, you're at least getting a black eye. And I'm going to go to gouge your eyes out, actually. Like, I'm going to fight if you're really coming for me and what's precious to me, my life, my values, my principles, and the good of my world and the people in it. And right now, the government is after all of that. So it is time for even a peaceful person like myself to say, it's the time to be the peaceful warrior. I don't want to wage war, but when you're coming after me, I'm going to fight back. And right now, each and every one of us, no matter where you are in the world, whether it's the United States or Canada or anywhere in South America, anywhere in Europe, they're coming for us. They're coming for all the things that are precious and that we hold sacred and dear, that give us the lives that we've been able to enjoy up until, let's say, a few years ago, whether you want to say it was 4 years ago or 8 years ago or 12 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. If you're old enough to be listening to this podcast or have an interest in this topic, you're old enough to remember that we kind of had it cushy and good for like a while. Things were stable, economies were flowing. We just had like money was around. You could put it into savings, retirement, travel. Things were just like, the systems were working and supporting us to live like pretty good lives, most of us in most cases. And those things are gone. They are gone. So now we have to try to get them back.
And I would say, for to not get carried away, I think many of us are experiencing this as a gathering storm, but you might be experiencing it more directly. I mean, I'm in Canada, you're in the United States. And so, for example, you might be walking down the street and see somebody get pulled off and bundled into a van. Those things are really happening street to street in places. And I should also point out that even though people might be asking, isn't this a hypnotherapy podcast? We are kind of made a decision in our pre-talk that we think it's sort of like time, that it's okay for us to be political today, because you don't have a life if you don't have freedom. And also, you don't have a life if you don't have a life. And if we don't start fighting for our lives, because people are in effect losing their lives. I'm not talking about people dying, but if you're spending the rest of your known life in a detention center, or you're, get sent somewhere who knows where, then that is people losing their lives. In fact, somebody did lose their life. This is something I actually wanted to mention. There was a crazy story about a guy who got run over. ICE went to grab somebody, and he ran across a freeway and he got run over and he died. Now, aside from this being a disturbing, shocking story, I also think it actually reflects something that people don't talk about, which is we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg with these things, meaning there are families and people out there that are living in terror of what is going on. And they are literally, and what's like, it reminds me of that famous story. There's a famous story of people hiding from the Nazis in the back of a garage or something in Europe. And there was a woman who had a baby. And the story was that she suffocated her own baby without meaning to, of course, but for survival. But I think that's a metaphor for the damage we do to the smaller parts of our families and the more vulnerable parts of our families. And that story of the guy running across is that, yeah, it's not directly maybe ICE's fault that that guy got run over, but if this kind of thing, this kind of phenomena that's happening, which is the terrorization of the population, has a visible horror, but it probably has a far larger invisible horror that we should know about.
Well, there's 2 points I want to make. And one is that, yes, this is a hypnosis and hypnotherapy podcast, and being experts in hypnosis and hypnotherapy, it means that we are experts in the realm of unconscious and subconscious forces, drives, and phenomena. And those are really, really present and driving forward individuals and the collective. And we are here to discuss those phenomena and bring awareness, and even provide some tools and suggestions on how to become conscious and be more clear and directed in where do you want to see your life going in the context of an insane, sick, corrupted, warmongering society, which is unfortunately the fascist reality that we are now fully inside of. It's no longer speculation. And if you don't get that, get it. Well, I'm not exaggerating here. And the second point I want to make is that you're touching on the detention centers, the immigration, and the terror that people are living in here in the United States. Even if they're citizens, but they look brown or indigenous, that's it. You're the target. Citizens are getting disappeared. But this was in fact the turning point for me in my fear journey, my concerns, which were from the first term of Trump being president. Concern. Then 4 years of an absolute disaster on the part of the Democratic Party. Like, can't believe how badly they fucked everything up. Then the return of this, and this isn't even like a term, but it's like, okay, now there's like a terrorist regime in full force. This isn't even 1 full year yet. It's not even 6 months. $45 billion are now allocated to build super prisons and quote unquote detention centers. Why is this the turning point in my fear journey, where it was the uptake, it was the hockey stick. It was like I was concerned, and then they're building huge prisons. They're not building prisons to leave them empty. They're building prisons as fast as they can to fill them with people immediately. So as soon as those doors can be opened, and they don't have to go through, hey, if I want to build a shed in my backyard, I need to get permits, and then there's an inspector, there's an appraiser. This is the level of the federal government. They're going to very quickly and shoddily build the most torturous chambers of concrete and steel that they can, and then just cram people in them right away. So the time to be concerned, if you're brown, is get out of the country now, because they are already taking people off the streets and they don't even have places to put them. Their $45 billion is going into a very specific cause, and it is taking brown people off the streets and putting them in prisons that are for-profit prisons. Okay, this is no longer speculative. This isn't an opinion. That is just the absolute facts, as bare bones brass tacks as it gets. That's what's happening.
I think
And that
what
is why I'm so scared.
well, and then there's the second part of this too, is that and maybe this leads us to bystander effect, which is that um, people have pointed out that once you build a ton of prisons and once you create a massive police force and you give it a mission, what happens when it starts to complete its mission? So what happens when you got a big part of the population deported or whatever, or imprisoned, and then you still got the police force looking for stuff to do and needs to keep going. Once you create this machine, it does not stop. And so that's also when it gets even scarier, and so yeah, it is time. It's really, really important in life to be able to recognize threats. And part of the problem is that we're often recognizing the wrong threats. Like that's often the definition of anxiety, which is you're being triggered by something that maybe isn't a danger to you, and you're reading it as if it is. But what happens when the danger becomes real? And in some ways, real, but also abstract, meaning, yeah, there's prisons being built somewhere, that's a real threat, but it's not on my street, so I can't see it. But maybe this can take us to this broader idea. In our conversation, you pointed out that you think we both sort of feel there's an intense bystander effect going on right now. And so bystander effect, I'm not sure who coined the expression originally. As I understand, it has been noted that when crazy things happen, violent things, especially traumatic things that people don't quite understand, meaning they're not sure what's happening. You mentioned the famous case of Kitty Genovese, I think in 1964 in New York City. A woman was raped in broad daylight in public. And basically nobody did anything. Not only nobody did anything, people watched. And this was seen, it's often characterized as as an example of the downfall of human civilization, but it's also basically sometimes an example of bystander effect, that when something violent is happening, and it's very similar to um, if you're a bunch of antelopes in on the savannah and the leopard comes running, but it grabs somebody else, you actually feel enormous relief, even though somebody's going to die because it's not you.
Sure. That is a discrete phenomena from bystander effect, though it is an interesting rabbit hole to turn down, but let's go more into the core idea of
Sure.
how the
Yeah.
bystander effect as an unconscious phenomena is
Yes.
present at the micro and macro levels of the individual and society, and as it pertains to the very scary times that we're in. So I want to be very careful with my language. Like, I don't want to say you should be scared, but it's a scary time. Now, being in a fear state is a disempowered state. So you don't want to just succumb to fear and terror, because you may become frozen, fawning, hide, skate. It's like it's a contracted and disempowered state. So how do we become empowered and take action or do things that are valuable? Well, we want to acknowledge that there's this thing called the bystander effect that's taking place, and it's very closely connected with mirror neurons. What we see other people doing, we are more likely to do ourselves. And now this
I
is
would
why we've titled
I would just
this
say
is
that
why
it's
we've
particular.
titled Go ahead.
Yeah, I should point out that it's particularly, it happens in moments of crisis, meaning we're talking about things where people are stressed and things are ramped up. We will search out unconsciously what other people are doing, because historically that has often led to safety. So if other people are running away, you should run away. If other people are ducking, you should duck. And this, again, is an unconscious phenomenon. That's why, as hypnotists, we're intrigued by it. It doesn't happen consciously. And it sometimes explains these very strange behaviors, why people don't help a person in crisis. Now, this is often only a split second phenomena, meaning, yeah, people don't help for 5 seconds, but then somebody wakes up and goes and helps.
And then all of a sudden, everybody else is active and moving.
That's right.
So
That's
we
right.
want that everybody who's listening to this right now, we need to be that first acting person that gets other people to go, oh yeah, I can also take action and do something.
And not only that, is that so this is why I think you're right to say bystander effect is happening right now, because if there's a public spectacle of something terrifying, such as random groups of men in mass grabbing people off the street, seemingly, that's scary. It's probably scary for anyone who sees that. So if that's the spectacle, then the bystander effect will be, I just got to make sure that's not me. That's the bystander effect. And even though there might be other things in the broader picture, for example, the
Is that
demonstration.
bystander effect, or that's the discrete phenomena that is closely connected to?
But I'm sort of making this point is that there's a theater of violence or frightening events going on where they're deliberately portraying and allowing scary things to be seen so that people feel
Mm,
passive. So, and I think to me that is bystander effect. I mean, it's when I see videos or TV shows showing terrifying things happen, that causes me internally to go get scared and be have this feeling of relief. Well, at least it kind of wasn't me or any of my friends or family. Um,
that's very interesting what you're talking about. And you mentioned the performative nature, the
yes,
spectacle that the
yes,
state narrative is controlling with
yes,
spectacle. Now, we were looking earlier at this video that the White House posted, this
right.
official White House post of over 20 armed FBI and US Marshals arresting the Subway sandwich thrower who offered himself up. He turned himself in.
Yeah, and
And
just
they
so that
set
everyone
this
understand,
spectacle along with a videographer that was paid by your tax dollars to go and make it look like, oh, it's somebody capturing on their phone. But no, this was planned in advance. Let's create a spectacle and release it and show that we're going after this guy. You can't get away with anything in Donald Trump's America, not
we should
even
explain
throwing a sandwich.
the context. So just so people understand, you may not know the
Yeah,
story,
yeah.
but so there was a guy threw a Subway sandwich, I think an originally a nice raid, I think, or sorry, in DC at some police patrols in DC, and I guess somebody got hit by the sandwich. Now, whether or not you think this is a bad thing or not, that um, the next day a mass police force went to his house and arrested him for throwing the sandwich. And as you point out, that it was a deliberately orchestrated spectacle, and the proof of it is that somebody was hired to be a camera person, but also that there's multiple police forces and very large amounts of people and taxpayer dollars going into this. So
For the crime of throwing a sandwich and saying you're fascists.
yeah, yeah,
Now, let's return. So there's this spectacle taking place, the state narratives that are controlling what we are meant to conclude, which is you can't get away with anything and you should be afraid. If you throw a sandwich or even have the slightest outburst, or maybe even it's at the point where if I even post on Facebook, fuck Donald Trump, I don't agree with this. You and I making this podcast right now, we're putting ourselves at risk. They can come after anybody for anything, and they're not holding back on resources. They'll send a SWAT team to come get 100-pound me because I just made a statement that said America's now a fascist authoritarian regime. Oh, you're not allowed to say that. It's against the state narrative that Trump's the best president American had, and this is a democracy, and the people wanted this. Is it there yet? Well, I'm gonna be moving to Mexico soon anyway, but they want us to feel so afraid that we become passive. And then being passive is already so easy because we've become accustomed, as I was saying earlier, we've named the title of this episode the bystander effect and the jerk off generation, which is our funny term for not just a generation like millennials or boomers or X. No, all of us who are alive right now have become so passive and placated, and it's like we are adults with pacifiers in our mouths, but instead of a pacifier in our mouth, it's a cell phone in our hands, and we're just swiping and scrolling and tapping and jerking off, and we just want to chill. we got used to just chilling and having cushy, easy lives where we like it's easy, and I got my phone, I got my Netflix, and I could just like, watch porn and just chill, scroll, tap, nap, whatever. That's like all those verbs kind of define 90% of most people's waking lives, like those few verbs. And now this whole generation who has been, our brains have been like scrambled and melted and just reduced in our intelligence and our willpower and our activity level, have been all like reduced and reduced by these highly addictive things that we're constantly engaging with at all hours of the day. Now this generation, all of us, we need to resist tyranny.
Can I chime in about why exactly, but why the jerk off angle originally? Because I think we were talking about
Yeah,
where
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
term,
This is so good. Yep.
as I understand, where the term jerk comes from, and the origin of the expression is that women, I think probably in the 50s or 40s, would deride a man as being a jerk or a jerk off, meaning that he's not really interested in women, and he's not really interested in engaging in women because he's a jerk off. Now that's an interesting idea, because in hypnosis we're interested in looping, and a jerk off. We're not against masturbation. We're not against jerking off. That's fine if you want to do that. It's more that the loop of, let's say, it only about being about me is a closed loop. And in our culture right now, there's more and more closed loop culture, meaning I am watching Instagram by myself. I'm playing video games by myself. I am getting pleasure. And it used to be that we needed other people for entertainment. We needed other people for pleasure. We would join in with to have sexual pleasure with other people. And as we become more isolated, your point is that the more we become in these closed loops, jerk off type behaviors, the less we wake up to what the connected world is doing. And
Right.
so,
Wake up to and participate in a way that is
right,
consistent with the values that you tell yourself you do have. But
right,
furthermore, the point that I'm making and how it links back to the bystander effect is that we are a generation that has been conditioned over years with extremely powerful, psychologically powerful technology to be passive, to be sedentary, to be inactive, to be not so concerned. I'm just scrolling and I'm seeing terrors and horrors of the world. Children are starving in Gaza, wars are happening, somebody's getting taken from their house. And I'm just like tapping and scrolling, and then a cat video comes up. We're on a mass level, we are desensitized to horrors because we're seeing them all the time, but also all scrambled in with other things like, hey, guys, have you ever had a flat tire? Gaza, war, crime. And it's just like it's a big scramble. Our minds are all scrambled. We're all sedentary. We're overly like we're filled with like foods that don't nourish us. Like we really have like this very complex systemic problem. Now, because we all have it, we see one another. We're talking about, man, things aren't going well. There's more violent crime in my own neighborhood just in the last few months. It's $45 for a steak at the grocery store. These are real problems. Oh, well, let me go back to scrolling. And then everybody else is doing that. And so we have this, because we are bystanders observing what are the people around me doing in response to this crisis. If the people around me seem calm or indifferent, it creates this interpretation at a very subconscious level that the situation is not urgent. Because I look around to see how are others responding, and they're just chilling, kicked back, watching Netflix. It's like, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Now my conscious mind may know better. No, like red alert, $45 billion, ICE, detention centers. I know, but like on an unconscious level, we're all just so laid back because we've just become accustomed to that over years and years of what's been going on with how we live. And we have to like really like the alarms need to sound and get us off our asses and into life.
yes, I think it reminds me of that meme that went around for a while, the "I'm fine" meme, which is a dog inside a burning house. I mean, that is America right now. You are the dog in the burning house, and you're saying I'm fine because, um, you know, down on Main Street, things are traffic is going, things seem to be normal. There's a kind of normalcy that is also going on. It's not like everywhere you go in America, it's police sirens and, crisis at every step. But um, anybody who's watching the weather knows that what could happen to America is the worst thing that can happen to any civilization, which is the descent into fascism. It ends terribly with enormous amounts of suffering and death. I mean, you can't really get more. If you want more suffering and death, check out Nazi Germany. It can't be worse than that. And this is not saying that Trump is Hitler. I don't think Trump is Hitler, but this is one of my pet peeves. I actually think we don't have good language to describe what's going on. I see people get all worked up and they say, we got to do something. We got to stop this slide towards authoritarianism. And I'm like, that doesn't sound very compelling. Like authoritarianism sounds like there's a guy who's just a bit bossy. I know that's not what it means, but another thing we need to employ is imagination. We have to start finding language to describe. I mean, I find the language that's better is more like clown fascism, because there's a clown quality to the leadership of the fascists, and that is sort of a kind of reasonable characterization. And it also will help people understand like that these people in their fanaticism are incredibly dangerous. They don't care about outcomes. They don't care where this is going. They don't care about your family and kids. There is no future for a lot of people the way things are going.
I think that is unfortunately true. And so let's use this nadir of energy to pivot towards, well, what can we do if we're not able to stay sane because things are already way off the charts? How do we return to something valuable and become empowered, even in any small way, and start to build ground with that? So
I was going to say one thing just to give clarity is that when we say bystander effect, the reason why we're saying it is that this is a ancient primordial mammalian instinct that is being manipulated by modern events. So meaning you are seeing scary things going on, which is triggering you to feel passive. Plus, as you point out, there's the technology that's already sort of amplifying that effect. Add in the jerk off effect, which is that you are getting used to closed loop behaviors where you're training yourself not to engage in your world. It's making everything worse. So part of the answer is to do the opposite, and also recognize that, for example, like I think Alaska is a great example today, because you might feel like, oh, everything's going south, everything is bad. There are huge, unprecedented demonstrations against Trump and Putin in Alaska, which says that you could tune your bystander effect to that. And you could go, I can see that there's a lot of people who look alive and happy, and they're not hurting anybody. They're good people. They're standing up for freedom and democracy. So I can tune my bystander effect to the bystanders I want to tune them to.
that's right.
So,
Excellent.
so
That's one thing that we can do.
yeah,
Look, actively seek out evidence that there are people, individuals joining into groups using teams and teamwork, because we only do this as a collective. I am not personally, nor are you, or you, gonna save the world. But collectively, when we band together, we have real communications, we join forces, we get organized, and we work together. Find people who are already doing that, observe, and then tell yourself, hey, if they're doing it, I can do it too. I have the bravery, the courage. I'm willing to put my skin in the game because the stakes are so high. Why would I not? This is my own life and the life of the people I care about that I am fighting for, and I'm willing to do what it takes. Now, what does it take? Find people who are doing something that inspires you. It might be the protesters in Alaska. It might be another group of people doing another type of action. Whatever active people are doing that inspires you, watch them and then realize, hey, if they're doing it, I can do it too, because that's the bystander effect. What other people are doing is what I could or should be doing as well.
And and there's a tendency for people to use very discouraging language. So, for example, sometimes people will be like, it seems like we're losing at every turn, or there's so many people that are MAGA or something like that. But in fact, there isn't the vast majority probably of Americans are decent and rational and would be against their country descending into fascism. In fact, and that number should just increase as people, if fascism really is happening, that number will increase because people will be like seeing it. They'll see, and they're seeing terrible things happen on their streets. They're seeing their economy going south. They're seeing the anarchy, the reputation for America. Las Vegas is going out of business. The American alcohol business is in crisis. This is all, there's a bunch of crises that didn't exist 6 months ago. And that may be some of the errors that the regime is making, which is doing some crazy things really fast so people can see, whoa, I was economically far better off 6 months ago. Las Vegas was far better off 6 months ago.
Sure.
Uh,
Even, I mean, internationally, tourism is down across the board. Tourism is down. People are either afraid to leave, or they don't feel comfortable making that expense, because things are so uncertain. In times of uncertainty, we save our money. The next thing we want to, I love your point, which is be very careful, be cautious, be deliberate with the words that come out of your mouth. Do not speak into being the worst case scenario every time you talk about things. Now, we may have done a bit of that here today, but we are also here very purposefully with a message of empowerment within the context of, we want to acknowledge the facts. We want to look at, hey, this is what's happening. We're not putting wool over our own eyes, and certainly not the eyes of others. We're here to do the opposite. We want eyes open, and we want action being taken. Speak into being. A lot of good people are taking themselves to the polls, taking themselves to town halls, taking themselves to the streets, taking themselves out of their homes, out of their quiet little sedentary world of one, into the bigger, greater world, making friends, making alliances, getting involved with nonprofit organizations. Good people are doing good things to resist this. I'm going to find them and speak to it. Speak it into power. Speak it into power. Speak that we have a resistance that is effectual. Speak it into power. Live it into power. See yourself. This is our language that we use when we have people in a hypnotic trance. You won't just say things in an abstract. You paint the image. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and see yourself moving forward through, yes, walking through a wall of fire, and yet you are strong. Your skin is not being burnt. You are resilient. You have a magic around you. You hold your head high and you get to the other side. See that the nation of the United States of America is doing this. See that the ICE facilities that are being constructed end up abandoned construction projects. See that. See it, live it, speak it, use the power of manifestation, or whatever you want to call it. What you say comes around. So be very deliberate with your word choice, and be very deliberate with what you're seeing in your mind's eye.
I like that. I really noticed that too, that when people, well-meaning people, often want to raise awareness, they often use language that sounds very disempowering. That there's, I think that they want to scare people, but sometimes they don't realize that the effect is just demoralizing and also might induce freeze behavior as
Exactly.
well. So
Yeah. Hopelessness is the biggest enemy.
I
Like
agree.
JFK, nothing to fear but fear itself, fear and hopelessness. I'm afraid, and I don't think it's even possible that things could get better. That is the most dangerous state of mind that a person or a collective could have.
I want to ask you though a question is that I think people watching this, I was curious too, is that I mean, you're a socially conscious person, but you're not a person who traditionally feels it is important to be political. That I wouldn't, that's my sense. I'm guessing that. What is it? What really makes you feel like you need to speak out now, today?
Because it's too far gone. At this point, not speaking about this is unethical. Like, why wouldn't I? Because I'm scared that somebody who thinks it's okay what's going on is going to say, well, I'll never hire her to be my hypnotherapist. Good. Stay away from me.
Yeah. Yes.
If you are somewhat sane and know that, hey, this is bad and getting worse all the time, and you want to empower yourself at a deep subconscious level and build up resources and courage and strength and stop being procrastinating or break your addiction to your phone, or you want to be a better person so you can hit the streets running, you call me. We'll do some good work and get you just juiced up, right? If you have a problem with my position politically, you can just fuck right off. I don't need to work with you. I don't need your business. I'm doing just fine.
Good for you. Yeah. Kind of feel the same way. I also just think that this is, this is also a way of frame, in hypnosis, way we frame things is very important. And this is not about a rivalry between political parties. This is about choosing human freedom and decency, and that the world is heading in a terrible place. And there's that line, but the people that are doing it have addresses, meaning they making people accountable or making the change. There's still plenty of time to save America. And not only that, one thing I was thinking about is in hypnosis, what are the one of the most powerful things we do to give people confidence? We ask people to find their resource states. So when have you faced something like this? When was the last time a bully picked on you, and what did you do? When did you make yourself feel proud? When did you make a change that really mattered? And I would say, when did you last have a revolution? Isn't like the entire basis of America is that America does not stand for tyranny, does not
That is
tolerate.
the entire basis. Mm-hmm.
So is that who you are? Are you actually American? Is that who you are? And can you remember that part of yourself? Are you ready to remember that part of yourself? And that there is, I mean, I've always admired that about America, that it's like, we're not going to put up with a king. We're just not going to do it. There's some dispute about the history, but what a revolutionary history implies is that the country does not put up with intolerable situations that oppose human freedom. That's good. I like who you are. I like your resources.
Yes. That is what it is to be American. To be American is to be the advocate for, the cheerleader for, and the demand for freedom. We
Right.
all learn here. I don't know if you as a Canadian are privy to this more more intimate piece of American history, but we all have heard of the man who said, "Give me liberty or give me death." I don't know who it was. I'm gonna Google it real fast. Who
Yeah.
said, "Give
Somebody
me
famous.
liberty"?
No, no.
Uh, Patrick Henry. Okay, my
Oh,
guess was Thomas Paine. His name was Patrick Henry, and it doesn't matter what his name was. He's the phrase itself has survived. Give me liberty or give me death. Somebody uttering that, and I think it was, it's like, that is the American spirit. If I'm not free, I'll be dead, and I demand it for all Americans. That's the American spirit. So if you're not in that spirit, you're not in the American spirit. Simple as that.
I think in my business, because I'm a reporter, one of the great things that being a journalist taught me was balance, and to actually seek out an opinion that either is unpopular or is not definitely the one that you have. And I would
Mm.
say, at this point, I would imagine, let's say Republicans or people that are, let's say, have a more Republican mindset would go, well, we're still kind of free. There's still plenty of freedom. I'm not seeing a true erosion of freedom in my local supermarket. But I think that you have to, it might be a point to say, what does it need? What do you need to convince you that something is wrong? when tourism drops off by 10%, not because of any economic trend, simply because the world is afraid to visit you or the world is angry at you, that's probably a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's only, another one would be the fact that you have police forces that are in disguise, actively doing things that are dramatic on the street. And I understand, again, there's people have these self-defense things. They think, oh, it's not going to happen to me. I bet pretty well everyone who gets grabbed, well, not for everyone, but a certain number of people who get grabbed probably didn't think it would happen to them.
At what number of your degrees of separation do you feel affected? So I don't personally yet know anyone, and I say yet because I honestly, unfortunately, again, I'm saying speak what you want into power, right? But also be smart. I don't think it's unreasonable to think if things keep going the way they're going, I will know somebody that my personal connection disappeared and now in a detention center. But I know somebody now. It's August 2025. This $45 billion has not yet been put into action. It's just been allocated. I already know somebody who is Puerto Rican. 2 people in her life are now in detention centers. So as a first degree of separation, I didn't know those people, but I care for somebody who's who's affected at home. 2 people who she cared for have been disappeared. So that's
Right.
1 degree of separation.
Right.
Am I separate from that? And now we can, we could slide into a spiritual conversation of where is the separation, or are we all one? And if you are the type of person who seeks the spiritual perspective and you're aware that all the wisdom traditions ultimately say it's all one, we are all one, love thy neighbor as thyself. If you at all resonate with the message of oneness, there are no degrees of separation. And every person that you're seeing on your little magic box who are being pulled off the street or in a full Nelson being dragged into an unmarked car by some thug in a bandana, that's you. It's all you. There are no separation. So if it's happening to that person, it's happening to you. If it's happening here and now, it's your here and now.
I
So
should point out,
at
too, that you can have, like, one might have a strong opinion, and there might be people watching this have a strong opinion about immigration. You might feel an illegal immigration, but I think, again, maybe this is the hypnosis angle. In hypnosis, you can't help but be theatrical because we deal with imagery. And what is disturbing is the images of a secret police force. That is disturbing, meaning even if that secret police force was absolutely doing the right thing. And you know what? A good way of looking at this is a great test. What would children think? What would, like, 7-year-old kids walking down the street feel when a secret police force went and grabbed people, off the street? Like, what would they feel about that? And they would feel terrified. They would have nightmares. It would scar them. So that's kind of the measure, in a kind of imagistic, hypnotic way, that you are looking at something that's problematic. Whatever the political context is, whatever it is, whatever, even if it was in, semi-justifiable or fully justifiable.
I love this question. What does this reality look like through the eyes of my child, or a child that I know, my niece, my nephew, or just any random child? Or even better yet, how would I, when I was 5, 6, 10 years old, how would I see this if it were happening when I was that age? Or if I was 10 years old right now, how would I perceive that? That's a really valuable question to play with in your own mind in any
Well,
context.
I have to say, it's one of the things as Canadians we find kind of funny. Funny is maybe the wrong word about America, because first of all, you have, what are the things that we teach kids? One of the first things we teach kids is don't lie, right? And then there's a picture of a guy in their classroom, and President of the United States, and what does he do, like, every day?
Lie.
Right. And then the other thing is they say, tell kids, don't commit crimes. And then there's a picture of the guy in the classroom, every classroom in the United States. And what does that guy do?
Criminal.
Right. And then the next one is kids don't be violent. And there's a police force that unnecessarily, I mean, this is what people have pointed out, even if illegal immigration is the huge problem and there that it and you need to deal with it very effectively with enormous amounts of manpower, there are still ways to do it that reach the same results without violence and horror.
The results that we're getting are not good. So earlier, I think I may have misspoke when I said tourism is down internationally. I don't know if I said that, but I meant to say nationally.
Yeah, it's just America. It's up
It's
in Canada.
international tourism to the United States, meaning nobody wants
Yeah,
to come here. And
yeah.
the number is that we have already lost $8.5 billion in tourism spending. So we would have $8.5 billion coming into the United States, into our economy. We've lost that because of our behavior and how we treat non-Americans, including citizens that just don't look the way we think that Americans should look.
Yeah.
How is that a result that we wanted?
How is that good business? Yeah. Yeah, I
Oh,
know.
well, a bankrupt, failed businessman is the one who's leading us down this path. What a surprise. Doing to our country what he did with all of the businesses that he ran. Do you know that there is some, like, economists have made the projection that had Donald Trump Jr. never done any business at all, he just took his inheritance, put it in, like, the way that financial advisors, rich people, trust fund babies, they're just like, manage this money for me and I'm getting my passive income from my dividends or whatever. If he did nothing, he'd be like twice as rich as he was being a businessman, losing money, being a terrible businessman.
Yeah, I know.
Doing nothing and just being a part of the jerk off generation. If only Donald Trump was just fucking jerking off and playing Fortnite, we would be much better off.
You know what is also terrifying? I mean, we don't get into this, but it's worth mentioning is the malignant narcissism angle.
That's
Because,
another episode.
yeah, we will stay away from it today. But yeah, so so your point is, and is that it's time to wake up. It was probably time to wake up a few months ago, but you know what? It's not. This is the other thing is you can
Well,
reframe things.
I
People
want to
are
make a
waking up.
distinction. I think people are waking up. My distinction is it's time to get out of bed. I
Right.
can wake up and lay in bed for literally hours. I'm dozing, I'm dreaming, I'm looking out the window, I'm petting my cat, I'm having a fine time. I'm awake. Technically, I'm awake, but I'm not up. I'm not active. I'm not productive. I'm not working. I'm just daydreaming, but I'm up. I think that we're kind of there. Many people are like, "Oh shit, I'm awake, dude. Like I know, I see the news. It's bad. I agree. You don't have to convince me." People are there, but are you now? Get out of bed. Take to the streets. Call your local senator. Make a philanthropic contribution. Like I'm very motivated to donate part of my income to Gavin Newsom, who I think is like the only contender we have on the national stage who's really like, fuck, dude, you have got my respect. As you said earlier, he is the only one really fighting fire with fire. I want to give him money.
Yeah. And maybe we're going to learn things as this thing goes. Meaning, the other thing is that fighting for freedom is fun. Fighting for freedom is inspiring. Fighting for freedom is not only the thing that we should be doing, and it's not only the right thing to do, it is the human thing to do, and it makes life better. Like it's maybe not fun if you end up in a detention center, or it's not fun when you're damaged for it. But if we're all doing, like if all the gazelles turn around on the tiger at the same time, there's been examples of that where there's this really funny example of a bear um, wandered into a woman's apartment in Vancouver, like a big black bear, and her tiny Pomeranian dog chased that bear right out of the apartment, and then it had trouble, I think, getting over a fence, and it was still chasing it. And It's such a great video, and
I
but
feel
it
like
shows
that
that.
that Pomeranian is my spirit animal. Like I'm this little
Yeah,
thing, but I'm
yeah, that's right.
like,
That's right. It just shows that it doesn't. You're small but mighty, and it also doesn't matter. You know, um, I my guess is that it's a vast majority of Americans who are for freedom. It's not the majority that likes what's going on. I may be wrong, but
I
it's
think you're right. And I'll end with one. On the one hand, we know we have the cult followers who are just denying their own reality. Nobody was paying $45 for a steak last month or last year. Period. You weren't. Now you're up on Reddit like, I guess you've never been to a grocery store, OP. This is just the market rate. Like what? Okay, you're way far gone. We're not concerned with those people. They're too far gone, but fine. But there are people who have voted for this who are now willing to be like, oh, fuck, this is actually not what I voted for. And one such example, news story that I saw, immigrant ran a like an ice cream truck for 20 years in his neighborhood. ICE came, took him off the streets. The interview was with some woman who was like, some white woman, I voted for Donald Trump because I wanted them to take the criminals away, the rapists, the killers. I didn't want them to take my local ice cream man, who my children for the last 15 years have been, he's a part of our neighborhood. That woman's awareness, she's somebody who's waking up. Okay. So those of us who were always like, this is not good, we've been awake, right? The people who voted for X but are now getting XXX are like, oh, look, I'm waking up. This is actually not what I voted for. And then you'll have the people who say, I'm getting exactly what I wanted, no matter if they take your own mother out of her nursing home and rape her and slit her throat. And they're like, Donald Trump, yeah, he did this. My mom sucks. Okay, I'm not even going to talk about those people. They're way too far gone. But everybody else, we need to keep pushing, 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 awakening, getting to action, motivating, building the confidence, teams and teamwork, communication, off your phone,
visualizing.
in the world, visualizing, keep pushing towards something that leads towards the reconciliation of civilization.
Yeah. Well said. I think that's a great place to end. Where I think so. Just to summarize, just so people might be wondering what the hell were we talking about today, was that we said that the bystander effect might be some of the reason why people are passive, because when you see scary, violent, or terrifying things, bystander effect, which is that your mirror neurons mirror what other people are doing. If you're looking at other passive people, you become passive. And rather than and what's interesting about that is that you might go, oh, am I a coward? No, it doesn't mean you're a coward. You just might be experiencing the bystander effect. The second thing is the jerk off generation, which was, I think, you coined, which was the idea that more than any previous generation. And I think that to define it correctly, it's not one group. It's not like 18 to 27. It's the part of all the generations that is so tied to these internal loops that they have no presence. They're not with people. They're not connecting. And they are going deeper into these loops of it's just me. And those people used to be called jerk offs, but now it's a generational problem. And so it doesn't mean you have to put down your phone, but when the right time comes, you should put down your phone and engage in this world.
If
So,
you have a phone addiction, I highly suggest the app called Be Present. It is extremely effective. I'm not being
mm,
paid to promote this product. I just really believe
mm,
in it. It's already had a very beneficial effect on my life and my relationship with my phone, with apps, with social media. It's very, very well designed. The UX is award. It should be winning awards, like the UX, meaning the user experience.
yeah,
Extremely, extremely well designed, well executed. It's the Be Present app. And if you have a phone problem, which we all do because it's designed to be a problem, check out that app. I really want to plug that. I really believe in it.
wonderful. Okay, I will check it out. Sounds good. Well, thank you, everyone, and have a great, I guess, weekend. And remember to be present and to stay sane. All right.
Bye.
Bye.